write well. There it is. Um, yeah, yeah, to take the time that I needed to, write in a way that was not, a hammer on the head. I think when you write, especially when you're an activist, writer, and lawyer, and whatever else you're doing, you're trying to change the world. There's a tendency sometimes when you write to write at people just the way one would speak at people, as opposed to speak with people. So I was like writing, I don't know, with the goal of quieting down the noise, including the noise of the injustices that we face in our respective struggles, but quieting down that noise and becoming really clear, and quiet about, and then writing quietly. Yeah, so I think this book is much, much gentler, you know, than some of the other things I've written in the past. But I think I believe that's why it's speaking to people and moving people, because I'm not screaming, I'm just speaking softly. And I think sometimes people can listen when you speak that way. I think that's it.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have a lot of questions after just that piece that you shared, but I want to make sure I offer space to anybody else who wants to have time to ask you questions about the novel, about who you are as a person. And so feel free to just type in your name in the chat. And Lalika, if you can help me by just letting me know the order if I go out of place. And so our first question comes from page 22 in your book. And I'm sure you may have received a lot of questions about this particular piece, the Sherman Alexie poem. And we wanted to ask you if you could share more about why you included this piece. And because when we were processing this poem, knowing the history about Sherman Alexie, especially in our space, because it is a Pan-Pacific group of women most of the time. And it was a lot of feelings had stirred up in this poem, knowing the sexual assault that had been associated with Sherman Alexie. And we were wondering if, including this piece, what was that like for you, first of all?
Sure. Thanks for the question. I kind of tried to articulate those reasons in the footnote. So it was kind of a long footnote. But I felt like, one, the piece wasn't actually about Alexie, really at all. I mean, it was much more about me at a really particular moment in time. I was like taking a photograph, of my younger self in a bookstore, meeting someone I had long respected. And of course, this predates the Me Too movement and the allegations against him. This is all, very locked in time. And I think it's important to honor sort of the different, sort of roadhouses that you stop at along the road to understanding, So it was a particular roadhouse along the side of the road, and I stopped there. And I wanted the reader to stop there too, because this book is primarily about young people who deeply desire but cannot access the language they need to set themselves free. And this moment is very clearly about that moment in a person's life, So it was perfection, because it really happened, and it was like a snapshot, in time, and it matters. And so despite whatever politics are happening, and tomorrow could be another writer, and the next day another, and it's like we're always sort of, and we're all contaminated per se, because we live in the world as it actually is. We breathe dirty air, like this is like, there's no pure oxygen. This is just, we're in it together. This is the world, and we struggle with all of these things, and like to not honor a part of yourself or a part of your journey because there's some random sort of current set of injustices and issues that one needs to tackle, that's a distraction. I think that's I just feel like it's unnecessary to make some choices in some ways about, because like if you're clear about what the intention is and you're clear about why you're using something, you know, like for example, why you're bringing in a story. Sometimes like I will bring in a story that's terrible, you know, but I use it to illustrate a different point, you know, like, I mean, you could sort of say that about all the other moments in the book too, like me experiencing my grandmother's abuse in the entry entitled Fighting Words. I mean, it was even like directly, you know, about like really the relatives I have on my maternal side that were incredibly abusive, you know, that but I'm bringing it up, and it's all because I'm using, and these stories are bridges that we have to use all of our experiences as bridges. You know, Angela Davis said once that walls turned sideways are bridges, you know, and that's exactly what this book is. It's a wall turned sideways, and it allows young people to make a crossing. You know, I think in that way, it's an active. I mean, I think in that way, it's well done. Sorry, that sounds a little conceited, but I believe this particular piece is particularly well done.
That was awesome. And that was beautifully put. And I feel so fortunate to have you here in this space to explain that, because there was a lot of feelings as we covered that portion. And I'm so happy people will be able to hear what that process was for you and sharing that experience of the inclusion of the Sherman Alexie poem. And which is not about Sherman Alexie, like you had shared, it's about you. So I don't even want to call it that. I just want to be like, it's a poem about Julian. So I wanted to give you a little bit what's going on in the chat. Alice had wrote, can you talk about the title of your book? Why did you choose that to be the banner of this beautiful offering?
Okay. Well, I'm sure you read from the opening entry, you know, the it was a meditation on the Catholic prayer for the dead. But also, I just think the pairing of the words, it has this, it's a little long, granted, but its length is perhaps its only flaw. But I really love the pairing of those words together, the properties of perpetual light. Because often when we talk about the properties of something, we're almost always in this realm, you know? So, you know, we almost immediately, instinctively go to chemistry or organic or inorganic. And we're like, the properties of, you know, water, the properties of, and, you know, we have an element table in our heads. And I was like, it's such a profound sort of way to sort of take that and sort of redeploy that, you know, this image, the properties of something, because what is perpetual light? You know, there's a whole thing. I think I don't know, it invites an almost alchemical sort of reflection on what, you know, the spiritual questions we wrestle with look like. And I just thought that was, you know, something for sure. And love. You know, I say that in the introduction. I don't have to repeat it here, but yeah. And I do that sort of throughout the book. I think More Right is another piece that's probably one of my favorites. It's extremely short. I mean, it is so short, but it does so much work. You know, like for me, because it has like all these juxtapositions, all these contradictions, they all live together in these 2 pages. Like you have an indigenous aunt giving me some sort of like insight about like magic and what our people understand and are able to do. And then you have her white husband from Australia, an interjection, which is like an interruption in a conversation. And like, you know what, that he doesn't really understand. Even having loved a Chamorro woman, and even having lived on Guam, he still doesn't get it because he doesn't sort of share in this ethos or worldview about what it means to be from this place. And then you have that, and then you have this sort of science of that. And then you have the sort of the sacredness of it, or the magic and the imagination. And it's also this ode to a child's insistent spirit. And it has language that sounds childlike, like more, like I was like, he was right, of course, but my aunt was more right. That's how a child would think of it and how a child would say it. And it's also like an insistence. And I think that part is really important. And it's that there's these tiny little choices that you make as a writer for different reasons, you know, But yeah, I think it sort of relates. It's sort of like the title itself, this insistent, um, sort of, I don't know, this insistence on problematizing, what we sort of take for granted or how we think about it, or an interrogation of language, So yeah, I think the title, like some of the other sort of play on words or whatever throughout the book, I think I was sort of always interested in sort of worrying the edges, if that makes sense. And yeah, so I really settled on that title. The one thing you should know is once I said it to myself, and once I really saw and like, once I saw all the words together on a page, I was completely certain that no matter what an editor would ever say, I would never retitle it because I thought it was perfect. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was very beautiful. And that prayer, like lots of feelings, lots of tears as we went through this journey with you in the book. It was just an incredible moment for our book club to like get to experience this. And so, which leads into like this like next question. We do have like a few members in our book club who do come from Guam and have ancestry there. And so one of the things was we wanted to ask you, what was it like gathering these stories, what that was experienced by the elders? Because a lot of our book readers from Guam had shared that their elders can't talk about the past. It's something that they avoid. And so to be able to go through this book and hear the stories, and it's kind of opened some dialogue amongst them and their parents as they're reading your book and saying like, hey, look what this book is talking about. And it's starting to open up and develop bridges, I guess, that you can say. And so we just wanted to know, what was that experience like?
That's, yeah, I have to think about that. Yeah, because the book clearly has a range where sometimes it's just recall. It's like me remembering sort of a vivid memory from earlier in life. And sometimes it involves talking to elders. For example, No Country for Eight Small Butterflies. I speak to Auntie Frances, who's a healer. She's in Chamorro, we would say Zoamti. She makes medicine for people. Her mother made medicine. And so, yeah, we sat in my house and she came up and she suffied me. And so we were in the back of the house and then we talked for, at length. I brought out coffee and we just talked for like a really long time. I mean, we both, she's aware of what's happening with firing ranges and everything, but hers is such a more immediate and direct connection to the land, that's sort of slated for destruction, because she actually she has lifetime memories of gathering medicine, memories that I don't have. I mean, those are hers, and she, like, and her mother before her, and then she would tell me about which plants grow in which particular conditions. And she would talk to me about like very specific plants and which ones, store water in their roots. And, so she was just sharing a lot of her indigenous sort of knowledge with me, and so at one point in our just discussion, it became very clear that she's so aware, of, I would call it pre-loss. This was even before technically the loss happened, the crime occurred, it's before the forests were bulldozed. Some of them have already been bulldozed. But she was describing this and she was tearing up, when she really thought about the future, and so I guess it's a hard question to answer, but because you're right. I mean, a lot of elders don't really like to talk about sort of their trauma, or like, especially with younger generations, or they have the sense that, let's leave it there, let's let it lie, and the past is just part of my past and it's painful. But I think the past is never really past. That's the real point. The past is always here, and indigenous peoples have this very obviously, so many of us, a non-linear way of like seeing the world, like Nick Estes, that amazing Native American scholar, he even said our history is the future, like in his book. And so, I feel like anytime that you have the opportunity to talk to your elders, including really deep conversations about their thoughts about what, their lived experience and their hopes for the future or fears for the future, anytime you're engaged in conversation like that, or have the opportunity to do so, I would say take it. These are really you learn more from them and from seeing the world for yourself than you ever do from books, or anything. Like you can learn so much, but you really learn. So it's a whole other being in relationship with other people, and having them sort of share what they have, the insight they've gleaned from their own life. That's very, very special. So whenever you have the opportunity, take it. And the other thing I would say is just, these are conversations that are had. So obviously you can't just, arrive, and be like, oh, let's have a really deep conversation about it. No, like people who have, no depth or no understanding are always about arriving as opposed to like getting to a destination, right? The journey, and I could never have had that conversation with her if I hadn't already had a relationship with her. If we didn't have a mutual relationship and there wasn't trust and rapport, and that takes time. And like reporters, for example, have no time. So this is a very different kind of storytelling because it's about, relationships. It's about taking the time to build relationships with people. Yeah, so I think that's it.
Awesome. I love that you said that you can't just, the importance of knowing how to arrive to a conversation or like to a moment, to a shared moment with somebody is so important. M, I don't know if you want to ask this question or if you'd like me to. Okay, I'll go ahead and ask. M writes, what was the process like for you publishing? You're writing through the form of this book for aspiring authors wanting to publish their writing.
So what was the publishing process like? Well, I guess the easiest answer is, I knew the publisher here. She's a friend from high school. We knew each other when we were like babies. But she had sort of come back to Guam just as many of us left for college and grad school and came back to be a part of the community. She was always very clear that she wanted to develop the University of Guam Press. So that's been her baby, her project. And so I've seen her work really hard to revamp this long dormant press on Guam. And she has, really successfully, in fact. And so I also wanted this book because it was so homegrown in a sense. And I wanted it to be colored. And I wanted to have the texture of everything local. So I really prioritized sort of supporting local in this process. I didn't want to give the book to anyone else. I just wanted, I wanted her to have it, like UOG Press to have it, because it's something that we can produce. And it's important to show our young people that we can be absolutely exceptional. We can be excellent. We can be superlative. We can be beautiful, gorgeous, in fact. And so I think, young people need to see examples of that. So she the press. So my only condition was that she figure out a really good distribution channel so that readers outside of Guam can easily access it. So that was my only real sort of non-negotiable. And so she met it, and we, the book is now being read by people all over, which is pretty amazing. And so I was lucky in that way. But yeah, so I mean, in terms of the region, I guess UH Press is the most popular sort of press for all the sort of Pacifica author, I mean, there's some others, right? But it's just been the longstanding sort of dominant player in the gang, and I could have went to UH Press and I, went to UH Law School, whatever. I love UH, but I mean, to some extent, but I just wanted it to be really local, locally produced and everything. So yeah, so that's why. But yeah, the process has been good. And I just, for aspiring authors wanting to publish, well, one, I would encourage them to consider UOG Press or UH Press or just, some of the other even smaller ones. Some other Pacifica writers have had some, literary success, and they've went with like other really small publishers. So yeah, just it's important to have a good relationship with the publisher or the editor.
That's incredible. I feel like we're all gonna go write books now, especially being so inspired by you.
I'm so glad that you all like the book so much. I mean, that's really good. I mean, that's nice.
Really, it was just nothing but good, like deep thought and feelings. And so, which leads me to my next question. Please forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. In your poem, Gasali, is that how you say it?
Yeah, Gausali, yeah.
Gausali. What were you meaning on this particular line? And this is on page 94. And so the line goes, rest and return to the right flower. So I was like, when there's such a big movement of decolonizing, especially within our Oceania community. And so when I'm looking at that poem and I'm seeing like return, but return to the right flower, like I wanted to get your feedback on that, because that particular line just showed like the intentionality that I feel like I need to do when I'm looking at coming back or at returning. And so, but please expand on this, like if you can, what you were.
Well, sure. Well, it relates back to the footnote and the explanatory one. Explain what this footnote really is. So Guam's official flower is an invasive species. It's the bougainvillea, right? The Puchitanibu. But actually, like there's a senator, a woman senator from Guam, who at one point tried to pass a bill to change Guam's official flower, from the invasive one to an actual endemic one, like actually from here, the Gausali, which I would say is one of the most sort of beloved homegrown flowers, And of course, she was viciously attacked in the media. Viciously. I mean, like, oh my God, what an idiot. Oh my God, what a waste of time. And oh my God, we have gigantic things to worry about. We have bigger fish to fry, lady. Get a grip, like that was like the sort of attitude, and I was like, pump the brakes. Like, I mean, I like watch it all happen, and I was like, wow, there's something like the Arundhati Roy, the really gifted writer from India, is a point that she's made throughout her literary career, and it's that the very biggest of things are connected to the very smallest of things, and so we're talking about confronting empire, a big fucking project. And like we're being sort of like under siege, there's like attacks from every angle. There's like a massive military buildup, and there's just the extreme denial of the fundamental right to self-determination. There's a struggle for independence, or I guess you could say self-determination, where independence is one option. There's all these massive sort of mammoth forces, but there's also this need to be attentive to small things, and so really the book is also insistent in that way. It's an insistence on paying attention to the lives, what Arundhati called the whisper and scurry of small lives, So I was like, why not end a book that takes on such big things with the tiniest poem about a tiny flower, because it's just this sort of impossibly delicate nature of this thing, it's important. So when you're confronting empire, you still have to stop and let's sort of look at the flowers. I mean, it's like this other, it's like in some ways it's very subversive to end, in my opinion, to end the book in this way, because I've talked about the military buildup, I've talked about just like ending imperialism, I've like all of these things, but it's just about beauty and about return to the right flower. It's about like there has to be room, this conversation has to be more full. There's room for beauty and joy and musicality, like all of these other things. So it really it's in some ways it's loaded with meaning, because it has all of this insistence, on the value and the importance and the beauty, of small things, and so that's why I really wanted to end the book with this poem about this flower. So Yeah, but that's what I mean. But literally, it's a reference to Judy Wampat's failed attempt to, have Guam's official flower changed from, an invasive species to an endemic one.
That's amazing. I know I keep saying that's amazing, but in my head, like seriously, at least our brain is so blown. You really like took us and educated us, and which leads me to my next question. I have so many questions. I feel like, please, y'all, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please feel free to raise your hand or just let me know. But my question for you again would be, what are better ways that people who are outside of Guam can show up better? And if I know this kind of puts you in a position of being the spokesperson, but I hope that you won't feel that way. But with this group, it is a very polycentric book club. And one of the things that we've learned more about is learning how to amplify Micronesian, especially and Melanesian voices in such a predominant Polynesian environment, and just learning how to do the work. Can you pause if you have any thoughts or ideas? Can you share with us some ideas of what better ways for our community to do so?
Well, I guess one is just be present in conversations in a real way. Don't sort of shy away from opportunities to interrupt conversations wherein Polynesia is being substituted for the entire Pacific Ocean region. Like interrupt that conversation constantly in your just sort of everyday lives and work and all of that. Don't allow the Polynesian voice to stand in for all of us. It's not right, but it happens all the time. I mean, God knows, even when there's like specific issues about like the Micronesian countries walking out of the Pacific Islands Forum, the very first voices I heard online were Polynesian ones. And I was like, for a while, I was like whiplash. I was like, wow, we can't even get a word in edgewise in this conversation, even if they're about our country. So just being able to look at and just sort of like giving up, sort of sharing the space, whether it's virtual space on social media, whatever, with Micronesian voices, or for example, if like there's a thread on Twitter or wherever, you sort of like point out and privilege like the lesser heard voices, whether they be Micronesian, Melanesian, whatever. But like all of those it requires that you're present in conversations and sort of actively listening to not only whose voices are being heard, but whose voices are not being heard. Yeah, I think that's a very easy way to do it. The other thing is just, be like vocal or in solidarity with Micronesian communities when they are up against some sort of injustice or have experienced some sort of police brutality or whatever it is, but be present in sort of that fora too, yeah, so I just think the solidarity work, I think, is important, but it starts with just your conversations in your daily life. It just starts there, with your loved ones and stuff. And so, of course, I wrote this book as a love letter to Micronesians too. It's for all of us, but God, like I tried to elevate the work of Kathy General Kitchener from the Marshall Islands. I tried to really do that toward the end of the book, but because I was like, we have to keep sort of bumping each other up, and I just feel like and also like there was lots of sort of Micronesian emphasis that came at the very end in the form of conversation that I had with my friend. But I was really trying to make Micronesia, make it be more explicit than it had been throughout the book, almost like this regionality of that, or sub-regionality of, but I just thought it was important because we're also living in a time where Micronesian voices are not only being drowned out, but they're just being, Micronesians are being vilified in different ways. Yeah, so I just thought it was an important time for that.
Thank you. I love the reminder to continue to be present in conversation and show up and be genuine about it. And so it's always wonderful to hear from you. I know we're at 8:11, so maybe 2-3 more questions if that's okay with you. And so I'm wanting to hear more about, as you shared in the introduction, about quieting the noise, because that is something that feels very important and crucial to do just as an individual, especially in this time when we're so wanting instant gratification with instant information and all that stuff. And that this book for you was important to quiet the noise and all that stuff. So how, or can you offer again some more suggestions of how you did that? Like, how did you quiet the noise? How did you really reach down and compose such a powerful book?
Well, I guess that's something we all have to figure out for ourselves, right? Like this idea, I can only offer my limited experience. It's really situational. 2020 happened to be, the year of COVID. I mean, really just the world economy coming to a grinding halt. There was just such a huge global pause in business as usual. And so part of that is the sort of like everything switches, your daily life, your routine, the logistics of the going to and the coming home from the office, like all of that. It's just like a monumental, time saver. And so like, so many things got cut out. Like, so I had so much more time of the day. I didn't have to get ready and go somewhere and all this stuff. So I had more time in the morning. I mean, and sometime throughout the day, but more time at night. And there was just, and also physically, like social distancing, but physically being, distant from others. Part of what quieting down the noise meant for me was actually not being around other people, in some ways, because like this kind of book, I don't know if I could have written really this book if I didn't have so much, space from other people, that space was really important. And so it was situational. So I was just fortunate that I was able to turn all of that solitude that last year represented into something really fruitful. We're not all able to do that. I mean, in some ways it's a privilege. I don't have children and I'm not, running around, like cooking dinner and changing their diapers or whatever, or carting them around or whatever, it's just, I didn't have to care for others right in my immediate vicinity. But like, so if I had young children, for example, it would have been much harder. If I had more commitments, it would have been much harder. If I didn't have a job or I still had monthly income, and I had to really stress about that, like so many other people. So I guess don't be so hard on yourselves or on each other when you think about like levels of productivity. We don't all have the luxury of time. Like in some ways time is a luxury, like, then not, it's just how it is. That's why, like, I think, so many people who are from communities that are, or struggling in some way, like in some ways, it's so much easier for outsiders to rush in and tell our story, like climate change, for example, because like so many other people are just trying to survive, like, so being mindful of that and really celebrating our authors or other artists and everything who are managing to produce, in times, of struggle and trepidation, because it's hard, but, and also just being aware of that and the sort of like privilege of that, all of that, and so, but yeah, so that's just my experience, but I understand that it's gonna, different for so many other people, but it is important no matter what you do to find a quiet place. Like Ocean Vuong, who wrote what I argue is one of the best books ever written, one of the best books I've ever read since I've been alive. It's that good. It's called On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. And he wrote it, he had to find the quietest place in his apartment in New York to write it. He lived with roommates who were like noisy as hell. And so he got a tiny corner in a closet in his room, like it had a lamp, and wrote that motherfucker. So I was like, okay. I was like, no, that is making it fucking work. Like we have to do that. But I mean, look, what can be born from sort of a sheer doggedness and determination to get quiet, to have some space from other people. But you can't really, write. And maybe writing is also a little different. Maybe it's not like every other art. In some ways, writing, to me at least, in my experience, it's something that requires quiet. It requires, other people shutting the fuck up. Like, the other people in your head, like I cuss a lot naturally, FYI, you should know that. I usually do a better job of cussing less. But that's just who I am. But yeah, so I need people to shut the fuck up. I really do. Like if I'm gonna write, like, and I cannot have their sort of basic ass opinions in my head. I just cannot hear any sort of like I can't. It's just too noisy. Other people are the noisiest thing in the world, in my opinion. You know? So yeah, being real about that.
That's great.
I know I'm gonna just ask you guys questions real quick.
No,
So are you all writers, or how did this book club start? What is the story here?
okay, so we started at the beginning of the pandemic, and we were like, oh shit, we gotta figure out a way to go through these long months of we don't know how long we're gonna have to quarantine. And it becomes very isolating, but I guess in some cases it's great that it is isolating if you're writing a book because you need that space. But we found community, and we wanted to learn more about our ocean, our people, and as well as like important Black, Indigenous, people of color issues. So this space, we've read a lot of different various types of books that come from majority of the time in Black, Indigenous, people of color. And so it can go from really funny books to really deep in your thought books, historical books. So we kind of just alternate who wants to take turns hosting a month, and we each just gather once a week and go through the book.
That's a lot once a week.
I know.
That's great.
We're like a class here.
Wow, you guys are disciplined. And so is this everyone in the book club?
There's more. So like people are seasonal, like they come when they need us and then leave when they got things to do. And there's no kind of rules to be here. We just tell people to come even if they don't have the book, to just come, because it's like a whole presentation. When people facilitate, we've got PowerPoints, and it's amazing. We don't require that, but people really show up, and it's an amazing space.
Nice.
We've had Kathy Jetnell Kitchener here, and she was amazing, and you're amazing. And we've had Lonnie Went Young and read a Telesaw book. So, and we had Teresia Siangatonu. And so seriously, the space is just here when people need us. And then when they can't make it certain months, they go do life. And then when they want to come back, it's just here. So.
Wow, that's all. Did you all know each other before the book club or because of the book club?
We know each other because of the book club.
Wow. Okay, last question. Where are you all based?
Okay, I'm gonna be quiet because I want everybody to give time, and maybe I should have done introductions. Sorry, all, but I'm gonna just say I'm from the United States. I'm located in Utah, and so maybe we'll just popcorn it. I'll popcorn it over to Alisi.
Hi, Julian. It's so nice to meet you. I've seen tweets about you, and it's an honor to just be in your presence and have your beautiful words just kind of land in our brains. I am Tongan, and I live in California currently. Lilika.
Hi, Julian. Malolele. My name is Lilika. I'm Tongan too. I grew up in Hawaii, but I'm currently zooming in from Japan. Just want to say I'm a big fan, especially of your work with Blue Ocean Law. I'm just a mom at home, but you really inspire me with your work and your words and just your spirit. So ofatu. Sorry, I'm gonna popcorn over to Jackie.
Hi, Jillian. It's such an honor to meet you. My name is Jackie. I use she, her, and her pronouns. This is actually my first time in book club and showing my face in book club, so it's like a lot.
Wow.
But it's
a big deal.
Yeah, to be here as someone who's not Pacific Islander and just being welcomed into the space and learning from y'all. Thank you for having me. I'm located in the Bay Area in California. And then M.
Hi, Julian. It's such a blessing to meet you. My name is M. I actually met you, or I actually had the honor of seeing you in Guam about, like, I think 2 years ago. I went through Keith Camacho's summer program through UCLA, where we got to spend some time there. And you came to visit one of our class sessions. So I was like sold by when I first met you in your presentation about your law firm and everything. So like to return back to like reading your book and actually like meeting you, I feel like a more intimate personal level through this Zoom. I'm like really grateful to meet you. I live in Daly City in California, born and raised in the Bay Area. And again, it's such an honor to see you again. And I will popcorn Veronica, if you can.
Ronnie might be listening.
Might be off.
Yeah, I know she normally goes to the gym during book club, so she likes to tune in and have this be her thing. So if Ronnie does come on, she could introduce, but she's tuning in from Australia. And so, yeah. Luciola, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, Julian and Luciela from California, Los Angeles. Thank you for coming today and making your book. It sparked a lot of really good conversations in this class.
And then to finish off, Lucky.
Hello, hi Julian. My name is Lucky. I'm Samoan. I was born in Alaska, but I currently reside in Los Angeles, California. Thank you so much for the space and for your work.
Is there any other questions you have about our group or for us? Or I know we're coming on our hour mark. And so I just want to give you time to have a discussion with us if you want to. And if you all want to, you're more than welcome to unmute and just laugh, talk story, whatever you feel comfortable with.
You're on mute. Man.
Oh, I was just asking if anyone took our Zoom picture with Julian.
Oh yeah.
We gotta get that. Sorry,
My mom has a baby on it, so I can't do it.
Okay, I can do it. So if you have the book, feel free to hold it up, because even if it's on a tablet, don't worry about it if you don't, because you know, we're big fans of Julian here. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, great.
My God, you guys are so great. You're wearing me out. You are awesome. I just love you all. You guys are like, you're so nice. I'm glad you like the book, you know, that's so awesome. And that, you know, that it, I don't know, I really hope some aspect of it was really useful, you know, if you're facing something or just, I mean, I really wrote the book for those of us who are, you know, who are sort of out of step. You know, we don't have everything figured out. No one does. But there's all this fucking bullshit. I mean, there's all of this, you know, and I just, like, honestly, one of my first thoughts when I started writing this book was, I'm so tired of shaking my ass to get into someone else's party. Fuck that. Like, I was just like, I'm going to, you know, do this for myself and for everyone else who is, you know, just get, you know, to the next step, you know, in their life. And so I totally get that I think you get the book. You know, it's not fancy. It's, you know, loving. It's so different, you know, from the way I think some people approach books. They're just, you know, you write a book, you want to win an award, or you write a book and you know, it's just nonsense, you know, it's just not helpful to other people, really. And honestly, lately, so many of the books I read, I hate. I'm just like, ugh, over it. So like, I'll be like 30 pages in and I'm like ditching it. I just stop. 30 pages is my limit. Like if it's just a piece of shit, and I know it because the writer's arrogant. It's like the presence or the absence of arrogance is what helps me determine if I finish the book. No, seriously, because some people are just trying to be they're trying too hard. It's too much. It's like their enterprise or their project seems to be impressing other people. And I'm not trying to do that. You know, we're not, you know, that. We don't always have to be so impressive. Like we're also real and we're struggling with some shit and we're messy. you know, but it's like, but it's important to kind of be a whole person. And I just really wanted to write a book that sort of cut the shit, you know, like and stop doing that, you know? Yeah, I just wanted a book like that. I just thought it would be more useful.
It was definitely useful for us. So whatever you did, do more of it. It was awesome. And I have quite a few books of yours. So I'm just so touched by everything you do, and it's incredible. You're definitely a gift to the culture, to our Pacific. And so if there's no other comments, I don't want to hold you from your responsibilities or your duties that you have to do, but I just want to say you are always welcome to this space. You are always welcome to come in. I have to put a name out there who suggested this book for our group, who was it was Ian Tapu.
Oh, yeah.
And he had suggested it for us, and he was unable because, you know, he got to pass the bar and like be lawyer and do all that stuff in Hawaii, and so getting sworn in. So he's you know, not that busy, but he was one of the people who like strongly suggested this book for us, and we had to immediately put it into our book schedule. So
nice. Oh man, thank you so much. Thank you all so much, and much love to you all.
Much
and be well. Stay blessed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again. Bye, Julian.
You'll share that photo with me, yeah?
Yeah.
Somehow. Okay. Nice.
We'll send you the photo. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye, everyone.
See ya.